5,477 days later, and the Buffalo Sabres win a playoff game. Welcome to NHL Wraparound Stanley Cupdate for Monday, April 20th, 2026. Vic Morren, Neil Smith, dusting off the playoff tune, dusting off the old artwork, and here we go, partner. The playoffs are underway. 7 games in the books over the weekend with only one series remaining to be started. That will be Edmonton and Anaheim on Monday. But from 30,000 feet, what was your impression of the first weekend?
Well, there's really only one shocker to me on the first weekend, and that was the Minnesota-Dallas game. But other than that, I thought things played out the way I thought they would, or the way that the standings led you to believe that they would. A lot of tight games, and that's what you expect in playoff hockey.
I thought one of the most interesting aspects before we dive into each series was some surprise starters in goal. Freddie Anderson, who, of course, I've been touting Brandon Bussi probably since November. He gets the start against the Ottawa Senators for Carolina, gets a shutout. Jesper Wallstedt, rookie goalie for Minnesota, goes in and wipes the floor with the Dallas Stars. And on the other side of the coin, Anton Forsberg and Carter Hart get starts for LA and Vegas respectively. But the point here is that the backups for these games, Darcy Kuemper for the Kings and Adin Hill for the Golden Knights, 2 former Stanley Cup winners in 2022 and 2023.
And with Kuemper, you add another wrinkle into it. Kuemper actually won the Stanley Cup in 22 with Colorado, who LA is playing against. So you would wonder whether Kuemper wanted to show Colorado they never should have traded him to Washington, but he didn't get that chance.
We'll get to that series a bit later on in this show, but we're going to start off on Sunday's Game 1 between the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins. The Sabres' last playoff win coming April 22nd of 2011. And prior to Game 1, a little bit of gamesmanship going on. Bruins head coach Marco Sturm saying, we're excited, we're bigger, we're stronger, we're more physical, we're just going to have to be smart, but we're going to go right after them. And Lindy Ruff kind of just brushed it off as this is typical gamesmanship that goes on before and during the course of series.
Yeah, and Lindy Ruff has certainly been around coaching a long, long time. As you said, it was almost 5,500 days ago that the Sabres won their last playoff game. And, of course, who was behind the bench on that playoff game? The same guy that was behind the bench in this playoff game. Has he been there all that time? No, he hasn't. He was gone for a long time. In fact, he coached a bunch of other teams, but he came back this season, and now here we are.
The atmosphere in Buffalo was terrific, but for a large stretch of this game, Sabres fans were sitting on their hands. They were even booing. At the end of the second period, Bruins went up 2-0 in the third, but then 3 goals in 4 minutes and 34 seconds with less than 8 minutes to play. Tage Thompson with the proximity and the tying goal, and then Matthias Samuelsson with the game winner on a play where Hampus Lindholm broke his stick and Bruins were scrambling. They were out of position. And Samuelsson gets the game winner against Jeremy Swayman, who was terrific for most of this game. Alex Tuch added an empty netter. The Bruins got a late goal in the final seconds. But what a stirring comeback for the Sabres and an unbelievable atmosphere in Buffalo.
Yeah, and what you're going to see now is that the Boston Bruins and Marco Sturm will go and adjust to what the Buffalo Sabres threw at them. And Buffalo will be happy as a clam going into game number 2 that they're up 1-0. And I suspect you're going to see a lot different game from the Boston Bruins. They're not going to want to let a 2-0 lead in the playoffs in the third period slip away.
One thing to look for in this series is that the Sabres power play 0 for 26 now, going back to the end of the regular season. They were 0 for 4 in game one. You know, the Bruins have talked about being disciplined and not taking the number of penalties that they do during the course of the regular season. So this is a storyline that I think is going to unfold throughout this series, is can this Buffalo power play get on track, and can they make the Bruins pay for taking penalties?
Absolutely. And can the Bruins keep shutting down the Sabres power play? Because if you don't have a power play, you don't go very far in the playoffs. Special teams are very important in the playoffs.
Game 2 of that series will be played at KeyBank Center Tuesday night, 7:30 on ESPN. Next game we're going to tackle, Montreal Canadiens win 4-3 in overtime in Tampa on Sunday. Now, we're going to start here with the injuries for the Tampa Bay defense, because Victor Hedman's still not out. This is not an injury. This is actually personal leave. He's supposed to rejoin the team when the series shifts over to Montreal for Game 3. Dominic James did come back after missing 24 games with a lower body injury suffered on February 28th. James briefly had to actually leave this game early on, but did return. But perhaps of more significance, Connor EdouardD'Astoud left this game in the second period. A charging penalty by Josh Anderson, but almost simultaneously, D'Astoud was also hit by Jake Evans. So this is something that has been a problem for John Cooper and his team the entire season, is that this defense has been decimated at various points during the course of the year, and Victor Hedman can't come back a game too soon.
That's right, and he's skating, and he'll, as you said, join the team in Montreal, and that'll be a huge boost to them. The hit by Anderson was, it was charging, but Evans was there. If Evans hadn't been there and he hadn't been sort of sandwiched, D'Astoud, that is, hadn't been sandwiched, he might not have got injured. Nonetheless, you're right. John Cooper's been facing injuries on defense all season and shuffling the deck.
Another problem that Cooper's team has was taking penalties in this first game. As a matter of fact, both teams better be respecting the other's power play, because of the 10 power play tries in this game, 5 power play goals, 3 of them by the Canadiens, all of them by Juraj Slafkovsky, including the game-winning goal at 1:22 of overtime. And that power play was set up by a high-sticking penalty by Jake Guentzel, who took a wild swing at a puck at head level. Instead, he clipped Caden Gooley. In all, 4 of the 5 power plays that Montreal got in this game were by virtue of offensive zone penalties. And Cooper afterwards said, you know what, this was just flat-out stupidity.
It is, and I don't understand why Jake Guentzel was swatting up high at that puck. I guess the adrenaline's going in that. But the other thing I got to tell you, Vic, that I'm sick and tired of seeing is these soccer players on ice. As soon as you hit a guy anywhere near his helmet, he flings his head back like he's been decapitated. And there's not even a mark on the guy. Like, there wasn't even a mark on the player when Guentzel got that high sticking penalty. Not a mark.
True, but it was an irresponsible play.
Yeah, well, it's 2026 high sticking. 20 years ago, it wouldn't have been high sticking. It would have been just, no harm, no foul. But now it's like, if you clip the plastic anywhere, you're going in the penalty box for high sticking. And the opposition makes sure the referee sees it, because they throw their head back like Lee Harvey Oswald is in the building.
Jeez. Nice analogy. Something about backing to the left. Unfortunately for Guentzel, he had 3 assists in this game, and I thought Brandon Hagel was actually the best player on ice for both teams. He was on the puck like a rabid dog all night, only to come up short in the end.
He was great. But he did get the 2 goals, and as you said, Guentzel had the 3 assists. Again, and I'm going to say this over and over again, John Cooper in Tampa now will go back and adjust, and they'll come back for this second home game, and you'll see a different Tampa team in game 2.
Some of the things that they have to clean up pretty evident in this one. And that second game will be at 7 o'clock on Tuesday on ESPN2. Let's head over to the Dallas-Minnesota series. They played their first game on Saturday. And I think score-wise, this was the biggest surprise of the 7 games that we saw. Minnesota going in with a 6-1 win over the Stars, the Wild getting 3 goals in 5:34 early in the second period to break this game open. Matt Boldy, 2 goals and an assist. Joel Eriksson-Ek, 2 goals. Kirill Kaprizov, a goal and 2 assists. Matt Zuccarello, 3 assists. The one thing that stood out for me, and of course I picked Dallas to win the Cup, and they're the ones that get blown out by the biggest scorer of all, at least in game 1. Yes, stop your laughing over there. But this is one of these things with Dallas. They're like the girl with the curl. When they're good, they're very good. And when they're bad, they're awful. This is one of these things with this Dallas team that I find a bit unsettling, because when they're bad, they almost look completely disconnected. And Jake Ottinger, who you remember was unceremoniously pulled in Game 6 of the conference final against the Edmonton Oilers last year, I said, oh yeah, he's going to be completely motivated to turn things around. Boy, this was a lot more of the same.
It was unbelievable how the Minnesota Wild just took the game. In 5 minutes and 34 seconds early in the second period to get those 3 goals, it was just astounding. In Dallas, obviously took the crowd right out of it. Probably took the crowd right out of the building. They probably left before the third period. But it was just a bad game for Glenn Gullickson's group. And I'm sure he's going to do a lot of work to make sure that it's different in game 2. But Minnesota looked pretty darn good. I mean, you talk about Dallas didn't look good. Minnesota looked really good.
Neil, is this just simply a case for Gullickson where you throw the game tape away and you say, you know what, this was a bad effort from top to bottom, and we just try to start anew this evening, being Monday, when game 2 will be played at the American Airlines Center, 9:30 Eastern on ESPN?
I think Glenn will just get his team to go back to the basics. What they're really trying to do in their basic game wasn't there in the first game. This was not a case of little things. This was the basic structure of their game. They're going to have to go through that and remind themselves, here's my assignment each time I'm out on the ice.
Let's move over to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And this was a game where you've got the youth of the Flyers against the old guards with the Pittsburgh Penguins, with Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, and Erik Karlsson. And the Flyers come away with a 3-2 win. Travis Sanheim and Porter Martone with goals in the third period to break the 1-1 tie. Dan Vladar really solid at the end. But something that really surprised me in this game was the Flyers did a great job clogging up the neutral zone. And when that happens, a team has to dump the puck in and go and get it, because that's where they're going to be able to generate their offense. And by doing so, they can also back the defensive team off of their blue line, so maybe they can rush the puck in a little bit later on. But the Pens never made this adjustment until the latter part of the third period. By then, it was too late. They only wound up getting 17 shots in this game. And you can see Sidney Crosby clearly frustrated, had a little bit of a stick duel towards the end with Sanheim, and was actually unavailable for the final 69 seconds of this game because of those dual minors.
And Sanheim and him would have been on Team Canada together, don't forget.
Yeah.
So they know each other well. You know, there was frustration from the Pens in this game, and you're right. This is not a team that likes to dump it and chase it. I mean, Malkin and Crosby and these guys, they don't want to do that. They want to carry it in. They want to use their skill, but they're not going to be able to do that the way that Rick Tocchet has the Flyers defending.
I thought it was a great job by them. And you can see this team is not only excited to be in the playoffs, they executed a game plan.
Absolutely. They executed a game plan, and it worked. They did very well for their first game in the playoffs in an awful long time.
Game 2 of that series, Monday, 7 o'clock on ESPN. Let's go back to Saturday. The first game of the playoffs was between Carolina and Ottawa. And I believe one of us, and it wasn't me, said there's no way that Brady Tkachuk is going to start a fight right off the opening faceoff, similar to what he did in the two meetings with the Islanders late in the season when he dropped the gloves with Anders Lee at the 1 second mark in both games. And in this one, he did wait 2 seconds longer to go after Hurricanes captain Jordan Staal.
And it was all set up and pre-planned. I mean, Jordan Staal came to him as well. Tkachuk was playing the wing. Staal took the face off, and then Brady Tkachuk went away. I'm sick and tired of this crap. It's all staged WWE stuff. It's not necessary, and the league should step in and say, like, come on. Do you want to sour people who are deciding whether or not to become hockey fans by putting on this crap at the beginning? What good did it do? It just doesn't do anything. It doesn't prove anything. There's no anger in the two guys to start the game. So it's like, Brady, you've done this enough. Your act is old now. Stop.
I thought in this game, the Senators really held their own for quite a while. I didn't love their decision-making on shot selection. I think for a team that like Carolina that just brings it to you all night, you can't be picky when you're going to shoot at the net. And the reality is Freddie Anderson had a couple of big saves to make on a Senators power play in the third period. But besides that, Carolina did a really good job locking this thing down for literally the entire game.
They did. They did a tremendous job of locking it down. It was a 2-0 final when you would have thought that, Carolina was capable of scoring 4 or 5 or 6 goals in a game, and they were happy just to take the lead and keep the lead throughout this game. I thought Anderson was terrific. They put up a graphic on TV, at least on the Carolina Hurricanes broadcast, showing how well Anderson has played in first rounds throughout his career, which I didn't really realize until I saw that graphic. But he was good. The shutout against Ottawa, they'll adjust to Carolina. And Carolina, who is the better team, obviously based upon the standings, will have to come out and just do it all over again.
You notice that I'm not really pumping Anderson's tires just yet.
No, I know. Well, you've actually been slashing his tires in previous shows. So there's got to be one of us here that looks out for the poor Danish guy.
Logan Stankoven with a goal and an assist in that game for Carolina, who probably could have won this game by a little bit more because they had a pair of 5-on-3s in this game, totaling 2 minutes and 1 second of two-man advantage time. They were unable to capitalize. But something else to look at for Game 2, which will take place on Monday, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN2, and that's an injury that Artem Zub suffered in the second period encounter with Seth Jarvis. Carter Yakimchuk has been called up, as has forward Arthur Kaliev. But this Ottawa defense has really suffered a ton of injuries, particularly in the back end of the season. And you have to wonder that if Zub is unable to go, just how long this defense is going to be able to hold out. Because, as we've said, Carolina just keeps bringing it. And this is really going to be a big chore for those that are able to suit up on that Ottawa backline.
For Travis Green, sort of like John Cooper, he's had Shabbat out, he's had Sanderson out, and now he's got Zub, it looks like might be out. And they've had to recall so many defensemen. He told me that when I saw him at UBS Arena that he was playing guys that he didn't even know them, that they were coming up and playing on the team, bringing up guys from Belleville to the big team. Boy, they've suffered through a lot of injuries, and you got to give them a lot of credit for where they ended up in the standings. Now, playoff time, you only get to lose 4 times, and you're gone home for the summer. So they're 1 down. They can't lose 3 more.
You don't want to be in a situation losing Game 2 also and having to win 4 out of 5 against this Hurricane team. The Senators, by the way, thought that they had tied this game in the third period on the power play, and we mentioned Anderson made a great stop, and it was ruled after review that the puck did not cross the goal line. But, you look at Green on the bench. And when a call goes against him, he always has that expression that he's eating a bad meal.
Yeah, the bitter beer man. Yeah, that's a good one. He's eating a bad meal.
Couple of other games to talk about on Sunday. First game took place was Colorado and LA, and as we know, the Avalanche, President's Trophy winners, favored to win the Stanley Cup. But this was a scoreless game until late in the second period when Arturi Lehkonen broke the seal on this one. Logan O'Connor added a goal in the third period. Scott Wedgwood with 24 saves. But I thought the most impressive thing for the Avalanche here, that even though this game was scoreless for over 35 minutes, the Avs stayed on point. They did not lose their discipline and start running out of position to try to get that opening goal. They just kept to their game plan and eventually paid off.
And it was interesting that LA, who you don't think of as being like a tough guy team, but boy, they tried to get McKinnon off his game. They tried to get Makar off his game. And I think those two players just said, like, no, we're not having any of it. But it was a lot closer game than I would have predicted it would have been with these two teams. And LA threw everything they had at them. So we'll see in game 2 if LA's got any more to give.
The one thing that is still baffling is this Colorado power play. And I think what we saw a lot of during the regular season, I saw particularly on their first power play of the game, where they are really trying to force the puck into the slot down low. They also miss a lot of nets with their shot. I thought their execution on the power play got better during the course of the game, but this is something that is going to need to click in, not necessarily in this round, but as the playoffs get deeper, should the Avs, as expected, advance.
One of the things that I see with the Avalanche power play is that they've got so many great players out there. Only one guy gets to shoot, and you've only got one puck. So that puck gets moved around. Who is it that you want to see shoot it? One could say McKinnon. One could say Makar, Nikushkin. Brock Nelson. You can go on, guys that can score. Usually you're trying to get the puck to the shooter. Washington, Alex Ovechkin. Obviously they're trying to get the puck to him. On Nashville now, Stamkos is the guy that's sitting in that spot. Maybe Kucherov and Gensel, one or the other on the Tampa Bay power play. But on this team, you've got almost all 5 guys out there can shoot the puck and could score goals. So they've got to work that out. What are we trying to do here? They're a lot smarter than I am on the power play, but all I'm saying is it looks to me like there's almost too many riches out there for them to make that power play work.
Do you notice that Adrian Kempe was a little bit of a lightning rod throughout this entire game? If there was a skirmish, he was involved.
Yeah, which was really odd. So, he went in and face washed McKinnon a little bit. He went after Makar at times. I was really surprised at that. And the thing that I would think if you're DJ Smith is you don't want Kempe taken out of the game. He's the one guy you want to keep in the game. He's got the highest skill, I think, of anybody on that team. And what about the overturned goal? We haven't talked about that.
Yeah. Yep.
Jack Drury cut in between Doughty and the goaltender. Doughty sort of put his rear end into Drury and knocked him back a little bit, which Drury then could not avoid colliding with the goaltender at the same time as there was a shot taken and scored by Colorado, or it seemed like they had a goal, only to be waved off because of goaltender interference.
As close as this game was, and it's often said, when you're a heavy underdog and you're close, you have to get that first game. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to recover in this series. Are the Kings capable of much more than what we saw in game 1?
I don't think so. I think that's the problem. I think that may go down as their best game. That may be everything they've got to throw at them. Only time will tell. But I don't think there's a lot more in the tank than what they showed us in game 1.
Game 2 of that series will take place on Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. Final game was the late game on Sunday, where Vegas, with a 4-2 win over Utah, Golden Knights scoring 3 times in the third period. But for 40 minutes. The Mammoth did not appear that they were out of place. They played a very responsible game, but you got to credit the experience of the Golden Knights because they stayed poised despite trailing. They got that game-tying goal in the third off the stick of Mark Stone, and then Nick Dowd on a deflection of a Noah Hannafin shot. And this was really the result of poor puck management by Utah. And then Ivan Barbashev added an empty net goal in the waning moments of that game. So overall, a solid effort by both teams. And in the end, I think it was Vegas's experience that won out and something that is going to test Utah throughout this series.
Yeah, and unlike the series we just talked about, Colorado and LA, this is a young Utah team, first time in the playoffs in an awful long time. As I said, with youth on their side, I think Utah's got more in the tank than they showed in game one. I think they were feeling their way through game one. I really do think Utah's going to win some hockey in this series. I don't know how much, but as I said, they've got the younger legs, and I think they'll make adjustments. And Vegas is in for a series here. This is not going to be an easy one for Vegas.
Carter Hart, 31 saves in the Vegas net, and looks strong after the Mammoth took a lead in the second period, a somewhat wonky goal where he missed the puck on the end around, and then when it was set on goal, he deflected it right off of his own defenseman and wound up behind him in the net.
But he did look good, and as you have pointed out in the past, John Tortorella being there, who knows Carter Hart from the Philadelphia days, might just be the one who has resurrected Hart to become all he can be in this series, because he's certainly going with him. And how about Tortorella's record so far with the Vegas? I mean, it's incredible.
8-0-1 since taking over, including that game one win.
Can't do much better than that.
What does it also say about Torts' involvement that he had a young team in Philadelphia and there was a certain way that group had to be coached? And this one, he's saying basically these guys know what they're doing. And I just need to be, what he is saying, more like a guidance counselor, that when things go off the rails a little bit, it's just his job to get it back on those rails.
You think about coaches and you think about teachers, professors, people that are in charge of groups of people. Cassidy's message might have just gone array because he was still trying to tell them what to do, whereas in comes a new voice that's not trying to tell them what to do, but trying to tell them, you know what to do. I'm just here to make sure you keep doing it. It's a totally different way of approaching the players. Obviously, this is working. That's not to say Bruce Cassidy's bad or did anything wrong, other than it was a different voice that came into the room. And it's sad for Cassidy, great for Tortorella, great for Vegas that they made the change because they're getting the results that they wanted.
As we wrap up this show, it only took me one period on Saturday to start getting annoyed at something. You know what that is?
Me?
Well, besides that, I'm always annoyed.
Oh, okay.
But the hit stat. So to put this in perspective, the average number of combined hits in a regular season NHL game is 40.9. And ESPN came up with a graphic that in the first period of the Ottawa-Carolina game, there were 53 combined hits in the first period. And then when you do the deeper dive over the course of the weekend and the 7 games that were played, it was 86.9, 608 total hits. So that's more than double. And so you go and look, and what is the actual definition of a hit in the eyes of the NHL? Is it separating the player from the puck, which is what I was able to ascertain? But this, to me, looks more like body context, and the puck is immaterial in here. But that just ticked me off because even TNT addressed it yesterday, but it was more in the context of, oh, look how much more physical the playoffs are. And if you saw these teams going at it late in the season and really throughout the entire season because only half the field make the playoffs. I'm just not buying this.
I think it's a stat that's, maybe it's for entertainment value for the fans. I don't pay any attention to it. I know when a series is physical and when it's not. And the playoffs are usually going to be physical. And, whatever they deem a hit to be, I don't really care, to be honest with you. I know they're hitting, but I don't need to know how many. I think this is for people, who just need stats in front of them to understand what they're watching.
It's probably the most subjective stat in a game that has a lot of subjective stats, such as giveaways and takeaways. And yes, I know that there's a definition, but the person that's actually running the tallies, you can get 100 people out there and you're going to have 100 different readings.
For me, I don't pay attention to it, but you're right about it. If you do pay attention to it, it's annoying because it means nothing.
Last item, adjustments. And you had made the point earlier, Neil, and gave a couple of examples of certain adjustments that teams are going to have to make coming off of their game one losses. And in the Monday games, it's going to be incumbent upon Dan Muse, Travis Green, and Glenn Gulletson to make those adjustments. And that's one of the most fascinating aspects of Stanley Cup hockey is how teams make adjustments during the course of a game, during the course of a series. But I think what gets lost in here also is that the teams that won game one also have to be ready to counter the adjustments that their opposition is going to make in anticipation of those changes. So as you look at the other side of the coin, Rick Tocchet, Rod Brind'Amour, and John Hynes, this is where this really becomes a chess match.
Well, it sure does. And in two of these series, the Dallas-Minnesota series and the Carolina-Ottawa series, Travis Green has got to figure out how to score first and try to score some goals and try to get their offense going. And the same thing with the Dallas Stars, who have a plethora of goal scorers and offensive talent. I don't think that they're going to have to worry about shutting down Minnesota, but they are going to have to say, we've got to get on these guys quicker. We've got to draw penalties. We've got to get on the power play. We've got to put some pucks into the net. We got to get on the board early. And for Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, probably the same thing as with Ottawa and Dallas. Pittsburgh's going to have to figure out a way to get their offensive prowess to work. They're going to have to get pucks in deep and then find a way to get the pucks to the guys they've got. They've got a lot of good offensive players, but basically we're down 3-1 late in the game and only scored that goal to make it 3-2. So you're right. Pittsburgh, Ottawa, Dallas have to figure out how to get more offense going. And on the other side of it, for Tocchet and for Brind'Amour and for John Hynes, they got to be ready to defend because they know those teams are coming after them now.
Let's quickly hit the Monday schedule. We've already touched on it as we've gone through these games, but let's put it in a cluster for you. Philadelphia at Pittsburgh, 7 o'clock ESPN. Ottawa, Carolina, 7:30 ESPN2. Minnesota, Dallas, 9:30 ESPN. And the only series that has not gotten underway yet, Anaheim at Edmonton, 10 o'clock ESPN2. And the Oilers hoping to have Leon Draisaitl back in their lineup.
And that's going to be a good one. I'm anxious to see Anaheim and Edmonton, only because Anaheim back into the playoffs. Edmonton had this topsy-turvy year again. And how will this series come out? I think Edmonton's going to come out on top, but Anaheim is an experienced team. They're not an inexperienced team. So Joel Kenville is a good playoff coach, obviously, with his 3 Stanley Cups.
They're going to have to tighten up their defensive structure, though, if they're going to have a shot in this series, because this was a train wreck at the end of the regular season.
No, it sure was. And they're going to have to tighten up, especially against Connor McDavid, Draisaitl, and Bonehead Bouchard.
Reach us individually at Neil at NHLWraparound.com or Vic at NHLWraparound.com. We are on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and YouTube. So leave a message, or if you're tuning in via YouTube, please subscribe. We're up to 835 subscribers. So once we hit 1,000, we're going to stop bothering people.
We need you to get your friends to subscribe. Help us out here.
We are also running polls on all of the opening round series, so weigh in on who you think is going to win. We also have our own Stanley Cup Challenge bracket going through NHL.com, so look up Wraparound. You'll find our bracket there. And, Neil, we got pretty good response. And I think these close today, meaning Monday. So still time to get in and join the fun.
Yeah, get in on our bracket. It's open to everybody, NHL Wraparound podcast. And if you put the word Wraparound in the search bar, you're going to be able to find us and join in on the fun.
I'm just hoping not to come in last.
Well, I don't think you got to worry about that.
No, yeah, again, until I get there. You can also find us on X, Instagram, TikTok, at RayD8.tv, and the new platform that has just come up, Buzzer, that's BZZR.com. Our website is NHLWraparound.com. And our latest spring cleaning dropped on Sunday as a quick take. We took a look at the New York Islanders. Still to come over the next 10 or so days, Columbus, Washington, Nashville, Winnipeg, and San Jose. So enjoy the hockey on Monday. Neil and I will be back with you again on Tuesday.